you can do it. You don't have to know everything. Just understand where your gaps are so that you can either fill it in yourself or find someone who can help you with that. Be curious and adopt. Founders struggle because they do one thing and they just think that's what they need to do, but they don't see any success, but they're also not adopting and reiterating. Stay curious on what works, what doesn't work. Stay open to adopt. Another point is including sales as storytelling. Really understand how to tell a good story, understand where the gaps are, and be a good storyteller so you can be a great salesperson.
Welcome to the Pantrium podcast. Here, there's no fluff and no sales pitches, just real conversations. I'm your host, Christie Kristensen, and at Patrium, we bring together bold and curious founders and leaders to share their stories, their lessons they have learned, and the hard truth behind their success. If you're craving deeper conversations, you're in the right space. So let's dive in. Eliane, thank you so much for coming to the Pantrium podcast. I've been looking forward to having you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. A pleasure to be here.
Sure, of course. The pleasure's all mine. As you know, I asked my guests the famous first question. Can you please introduce yourself with a fun fact?
A fun fact about me is that I'm actually a village girl. So a lot of people don't know that or don't think that. And when I say village, they're like, oh yeah, village, but it's an actual village. Like where I'm from, there's only 1,000 people live there. So I really literally grew up between two farms, between cows and chickens. So I'd say that's my fun fact.
That is so cute. And where in the world was this little village located?
Oh yeah, in South Germany. So like an hour ago from Swiss border.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
It was a very, very nice childhood in a lot of green, for sure. Very different to where I live now in London.
And we're going to talk so much more about that, going from, if I may, village girl to city girl, but also through your career and your journey and how did you even end up in London? And we're going to talk about marketing because that's your bread and butter.
Exactly.
So let's go right into it. And I wanted to hear a little bit about what is one of those hardest lessons that you've learned throughout your own career?
I think the hardest lesson was that obviously you're always smart in hindsight, but I now realized, because I had a lack of vision or understanding what I want to do in my career, I think I could have, fast tracked where I am now. So I think the hardest lesson was to realize, that maybe I don't want to say waste a little bit of time in the early stages of my career. But I think that was something that took me a minute because, when you realize I could have been at this point earlier. But I think that was, something I learned that, it could have been fast tracked.
Yeah.
But obviously you're always smart in hindsight. And I think still every part of my journey was still beneficial to, my path of taking, up on own consultancy. So that was still, it's a hard lesson to learn, but it was still a helpful lesson to learn.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about the journey to get there. Now you teased a little bit about your consultancy, but how did you get there? Like what was your journey to get to the point where you today is the founder of a marketing consultancy agency?
Yeah, so it was definitely a bit of a longer journey. Obviously, as mentioned, I'm from a village. So where I'm from, no one was visibly successful or poor for that matter. We kind of all were the same. So I kind of never thought of myself of being able to having my own business. I never even thought to have, career. It was more, okay, obviously I will have a job and I was never intending to make a lot of money. because it just seemed very far-fetched to me. So I think that's why, obviously, also, as just mentioned, I think at the beginning of my career, I had no understanding of, you know, what is it that I actually want to achieve? What are the roles that I'm thinking of taking up in the future? What do I need to do to get to that point? So I think the journey for me was basically, I think the biggest change for me when I moved to London, because basically, obviously, I grew up in a village. Then I moved eventually to Berlin to start my career, where I started working in some of the first startups. And there I kind of just tapped into, okay, I want to do email marketing, I want to do CRM, but I didn't really have a bigger vision for myself. And it was only when I moved to London, and obviously, if you've been in London, or for anyone who lives in London, it's a very vibrant environment. There's a lot of possibilities in the city, and that also exposed me to a lot of different paths, a lot of different people that were very successful. And I think that was the first time where I maybe asked myself, can I maybe also achieve more than I thought of myself, that I'm able to achieve? And I think then it kind of, when it was a very slow progress initially, I was just thinking it would be great to maybe work as a contractor instead of, being fully employed, just because obviously you have the possibility to work for different projects, different businesses, also make more money. And then I think from there, it kind of was a slow train thought of, you know, contracting is, one step. But what about if I'm just starting my own agency and consultancy? And then that thought turned into, yeah, actually, let me do it next year. And that thought led to, okay, actually, let me just start with, business plan. And then from there, I was like, actually, let me start maybe on the side. And from there, I ended up saying, fuck it. And I just quit my job with no clients lined up because I'm ready to go. But yeah, so it was a very slow journey from, not ever thinking I will have my own business. I literally, I think, had no entrepreneurial spirit in me up until 2 years ago. So it kind of, the last 2 years were, a huge change for me, but everything up until that point obviously slowly influenced me to getting to that point.
Yeah, but that sounds also super scary, just going around and from idea to then actually quitting your job
Yeah.
and then do something about that idea and that initial thought of maybe I should do something myself. Like
Yeah.
how did you do that? Because that sounds super scary.
Yeah, I think a lot of people told me, "Oh my God, that's so risky, or you're so brave."
Yeah.
And to be fair, for me, it was a very calculated risk when I quit my job, because obviously I did make sure, I had enough savings. So I knew I had savings for, at least, I think, 8 months or so to keep me above water. And I thought, in 8 months, I will get enough clients, because basically I also had an understanding of my business model and how much money I can make per client. And technically, I've only needed 4 or 5 clients a year. So that's not an unreasonable number. So in my head, I was like, okay, I have 8 months to now at least find my first 2 clients. And that doesn't sound so unreasonable. And I thought, okay, if that doesn't work out, let's say I get to month, 4 or 5, and I realize, okay, it's not working out, I'll just quietly start applying for jobs again, and we'll never talk about it again. But yeah, so
Yeah.
for me, it was very much a calculated risk in that sense. So yes, maybe it was a big step to actually quit my job, but I knew it was the only way for me to kind of really, you know, give it 100%, because I tried before to started on the side, but it's really hard if you have a full-time job, to then come home and trying to really dig into what it takes to build a business. And
Yeah.
quitting my job really gave me that space. So I was very grateful I was in a position to quit my job, because I knew I had enough savings. So yeah, so for me, it wasn't I would, a lot of people say brave, but for me, it was just a very calculated risk. Yeah, that's why.
Brilliant. And I caught that you said you also had a sense of the business case. You understood that. Is that also in hindsight of your experience in the work, both from your work in Berlin and then coming to the UK, that you got the backbone of the industry? You were saying about the CRM and marketing
Mm,
tactics and so on, that you understood the business case and the business model. And can you tell me a little bit more about that? What key
yeah,
work for you to say, okay, now I'm ready. Now it's time
yeah.
to burst the bubble and jump in.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I think what definitely helped is that in the 10 years I worked before, I was working in very different companies and industries. So I was working in startups, but I was also working for bigger corporations such as Farfetch, for example. And that really helped me to see, because now I basically have a CRM and email marketing consultancy where what kind of pain points and needs early businesses have, but also what can CRM and email marketing look like in in $1 billion business.
Mm.
And so that was definitely helpful in understanding the different business cases I can approach with my consultancy. And I think the other motivation was, okay, if I want to build a business, I obviously want to get a sustainable income. So I immediately, quite quickly knew, okay, I want to rather than be paid hourly, be paid on a project basis, and what kind of projects have the maximum or a large impact, a big impact on, the revenue conversion engagement. And then basically quite quickly realized, okay, these are my three main products: audit, strategy, workshops. So with all of that, I kind of, so the one side was, for working in different industries, helped me to understand what is actually needed by certain businesses that I can sell as a product, and my own understanding, okay, how I want to keep myself liquid basically, is, okay, these are the packages that I'm offering, high ticket packages. And that kind of helped me then to put together, the service offering that I have now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that experience, and as you got going, and your experiences early on, as you were establishing your own agency, a consultancy firm, what would you look when you look back at that? What would you say? Why did I do that? Like, what is some of those key lessons you learned as you reflect back?
Oh my God, there were so many things. I think my first lesson was definitely realizing that I had no understanding of sales. Obviously, working in marketing, I was like, marketing sales is somewhat similar. With marketing, you're just basically targeting a larger group. Within sales, you're just speaking to one or two people
Mm,
at the same time.
mm.
But I realized it's most definitely not the same. It's not a transferable skill. And I think just looking at, my first cold outreach attempts, I realized, I really didn't know what I was doing. So that's definitely, you obviously live and learn. So there's a huge learning curve that I went through the past year, especially when it comes to how to win new clients, you know, um, just in regards to my sales skills, how to phrase what we do, like the messaging, how to package it. So yeah, there were quite a few things where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I said this message or I said this and that. But I guess that's normal. So, you live and you learn.
Yeah, exactly. You That's the only way forward, right? So what would you say to others who might also underestimate the power in the sales, and also there's a lot of the discussion about sales and marketing, they don't necessarily like each other, but there's always it's a challenging relationship, to say the
Yeah.
least. What would you say from your experience of learning how to better pitch, how to better present, how to better sell, and deliver that message to prospects?
Yeah.
What is the one advice you would give to your younger self?
I think there's probably two things. It's like, don't be so, and maybe that's me being very German, because obviously maybe Germans have the what do you say, that we're very direct. So I think I was way too direct sometimes, instead of starting a conversation, listening, understanding what their current business needs is. I think I kind of, obviously, in my mind, I was like, yeah, I understand the business needs, and I'm going to target them and say, I know this is your business need. This is what I'm offering. But obviously, this is not how it works. So I think that's very important, to just have conversations and listen. I think that was one important learning, especially in regards to sales. And the other point is the messaging. So how do you, phrase your product offering? I think for me at the beginning, I was very process driven. This is what we do. Will be eventually the results, where at the end of the day, whoever you speak to, they obviously just care about the impact. So make it an impact driven messaging, and make it a very clear messaging, have a very structured offering, not too many things at the same time, not saying, oh, we have 10 different services and 10 different products. I literally just have free audit, strategy, and workshops, and that's much more easier to sell, and very easier to communicate as well. Yeah. So these two things: listen, have a conversation, and have clear messaging. Yeah. Or service offering.
And it's almost like if you go into a restaurant, right, and they have burger and they have sushi and they have Thai food or whatever.
Exactly.
And you're like, or just like same type of cuisine, but you have, endless of pages of a menu.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of get paralyzed. You don't know what to choose. And you're just like, actually, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we all know the restaurants who offer too many different cuisines are never a good one.
Yeah. It's like Gordon Ramsay that says, like, the shorter the menu, the more crisp you can also be in your craft. So
exactly.
Yeah. And I wanted to hear, as you now also in your journey and building upon your own experiences and so on, would you say there's something that have been carried over from the past and also in your previous work experiences that have helped shape the way you think or go about things? Do you have a certain framework that you see that is your kind of go-to?
Yeah. No, I think for me, it was really helpful to work in a larger corporation, just because there was a lot of structure, a lot of processes that I could now just steal for myself. And that's just, and that's not necessarily copying a process one to one, but even understanding that there can be a process for certain things in the first place. So that was really helpful. But I think there's so many little things that I could take away. Obviously, in regards to my service offering itself, it was extremely helpful, because now I know how to structure a proposal, which is basically a roadmap. And having worked in so many different companies, I understand how to build a roadmap. And that I then just translated into a proposal, basically. So that's very helpful. I think also in larger corporations, I learned to really understand why you do certain things, because when you're in a room with more senior leadership, they might want to really understand, okay, why are you doing this? What is the impact? How quickly does it take? How to prioritize? So these are definitely all things that help me in my thinking process and generally establish a process for my services.
Yeah. And as you are, I wanted to go back to an earlier point that you made about the social surroundings, that people around you influence you and also makes you wonder, I could do more than just.
Yeah.
How are you using that network today also to continuously pushing yourself?
That's a good question. I think the people around me were more pushing me to get to that point. But I think now I realize I built a completely new network. I didn't think, because obviously they always say your network is your net worth. And I remember when I initially started, I was looking to speak to a lot of agency owners that are already successful to kind of understand how they got to that point. And a lot of them said, oh, my first clients I found through my network, and a lot of referrals. So it was almost demotivating at the beginning because I felt I didn't have a big network or no network yet to really establish myself. Because yes, I had a great surrounding of successful people, but they weren't really doing what I do or in the industry that I was working in. But I think I also realized if you really tap into the existing network to just say, this is what I'm doing, spread the word, who do you know? I started going to network events. I met so many people in the relevant industries, so many other agency owners. I joined a community for entrepreneurs. So I think I also then created another environment for me to even, flourish more and grow more from that network. But yeah, it was definitely my initial network, just, the surrounding in London definitely helped me to realize I can do more, and that I can also be an entrepreneur and a business owner. And then from that point, I just expanded my network and seeked out people that really helped me to kind of get further in my path.
And with, you know, these social changes that we have, and we have more and more people going into the gig economy, and more and more people, especially the younger generation, also wanting to be their own entrepreneurs and have their own businesses. What would you say would be the biggest advice for someone either wanting to jump in and do something themselves, or still unsure about how to go about it?
I think just start. That's the one for me. I think especially when you were in a similar position as me, where, at the beginning I thought, you need to know everything. You need to have certain skills I thought I didn't have. You need to have a certain network I think I didn't have. But just starting helped me. And when I say just starting, I literally, a lot of people say you shouldn't care about this at the beginning or you shouldn't do it. But one of the first things that I worked on was just my website. And it really helped because I start with a business plan. And then obviously you have to ask yourself, okay, what is my service offering? What is my industry? But then at the same time, I started with the website, and it was more like a mental process for me because then it became, I guess I'm a visual person, and then it became real to me what it can be. And
Yeah.
just, also with the website, similar to a business plan, you have to kind of structure it to, okay, who do you actually want to address with what you're saying on this website? What is your service offering? So that really kind of helped me. It wasn't speaking to people or just starting to reach out. It was literally sitting at my house, working on a business plan, working on a website. That was just, I guess design and everything excites me as well.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of felt exciting to work on my own website, not just on a work document with a business plan. And that kind of helped me. And I think it motivated me and it made it real to me.
Yeah.
So my takeaway or my advice is just start. Whatever your thought is, start on a piece of paper, start on a Word document, start a website, and then, it really helped me to, then go from there to make it a real thing.
Yeah, and formalize it, right? Because also then to your
Yeah,
point, you kind of you are using that structure to help you bring it to life, and then once you're there, you probably also indirectly become a bit accountable to your own idea. That you feel like, oh, now I
exactly.
must do something about it because now I've
Yeah,
already invested so much time and energy into this bit, rather that's an
exactly.
Excel document or a website or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly. And it just got me excited. Like I really just then wanted to do it. And I think then also the other thing that helped me is just talking about it. I think it, initially it was just a thought in my head, and then I started saying it out loud when people ask me how I am, or what, how my job is or how work is, and then it then just became real from just talking about it and working
Yeah.
on business plan.
Very nice. I like that. Just talking about it, making it real, and just get started.
Yeah. I
Take
guess
it from,
that's also a way of manifesting it.
yeah, from
Yeah.
idea to a manifest of some sort.
Exactly.
Very nice.
Exactly.
Um, and I wanted to hear, because we're talking a lot about like all your learnings and what you have experienced and so on. Um, what has been some of your biggest aha moments through this journey of establishing your own business?
The biggest aha moments, I think, is, also always, everyone always says that, but being patient is very important, especially at the beginning. You're very motivated. Um, but then you realize, okay, it's just certain things take time.
Yeah.
So, I realize, okay, it's really a thing to be patient in this life.
Yeah.
It's really helpful. And I think to be resilient is also very important. So, obviously at the beginning you might get a few more no's. But I think what was the biggest aha moment for me is just to realize I'm actually doing this, and it's actually working. People are actually replying. People are actually interested to listen to me, and people are actually signing contract. Just the realization I could do it. I did it, and it's working. I think that was the biggest aha moment for me, for sure.
Fantastic. And I think there's this saying also that as a founder, you are in a marathon, you're not in a sprint. So it's also like,
Yeah.
that patience can also help you be resilient in the long run, because
Mm,
otherwise you're also gonna just burn yourself out too quickly
exactly.
if you address it as a sprint.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and I wanted to kind of move our conversation towards the last bit of the show, where I wanted to hear a little bit more about the segment you're in. So we talked about marketing and so on. I wanted to hear if there was any rules in your sector that you would love to break. What would they be?
I think in my sector, so saying slash agency slash consultancy is probably around payment, which I think I'm currently breaking. Because basically, I think from my understanding, a lot of the payment structure is to be paid, 50% before, 50% afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think especially when you're just starting, you really need access to, money to pay your bills.
Yeah.
So the rule that I think broke is to just break up my project in milestones and get paid per milestones in advance. And then honestly, it helps so much to kind of free up your mind to really focus on your project, to not be, worried that you now later have to chase anyone to, pay their invoice. So I think that's kind of, especially with the current economy, I think that's something a lot more people should kind of break that rule, which is obviously, to kind of pay afterwards or invoice it after the work is delivered, or at least 50% now, 50% later. I think that is something that, especially if you're just starting out and you don't have all the resources in the world, that is a rule that can really help if you break that.
Yeah. And what do you see as like the biggest trends? I know, like when we talk about marketing and, AI is on everyone's lips, obviously. But
Yeah.
what do you see is going to change in your area for the next couple of years?
I think it's very interesting because obviously now, strategists and all of that, which what I am is obviously threatened by, AI can do all of our jobs as well. So I think it will be very interesting if, business and then will actually rely more on AI output for their strategy work. I think I don't really see it as an immediate threat in the next 5 years, but I'm definitely thinking long term. I have to look at, what other services and product I can offer that, can't be necessarily replicated by AI. So I think the trend is definitely to kind of rethink your service offering. What could potentially be threatened by AI, and how do you need to develop your service offering as a business? But yeah, obviously AI is the main trend, but it can also benefit you to grow your business more quickly in because it is your 24/7 assistant that you don't have to pay. Well, 20 pound a month, but that's very cheap labor, I'd say. But yeah, so I think that will be probably the biggest trend we might see, that agencies, consultancy have to reconsider their offering.
Yeah. And speaking of, £20 is a cheap labor. Which AI tools are you using in your own work today?
Yeah. Obviously the classic one, ChatGPT, kind of helping me with just refining some of the content that I put out. Sometimes just to write an email. What's also very helpful is AI note takers. So when I first started, I didn't know about AI note takers that take notes during your meeting. So I always was there with clients making notes in my little notebook, but then obviously I couldn't really focus on the conversation. And then sometimes I focused on the conversation and afterwards couldn't remember what they said in
Yes.
detail because I couldn't take notes. So that's definitely a game changer, to really have an AI note taker on your meetings that really gives you an overview of next steps and what has been said in the meetings. And then what's another one? I guess these are probably my main ones. There are probably other ones that I don't think
Yeah.
of, but ChatGPT just for general questions, content, and AI note takers.
Yeah. Yeah, I use that a lot as well in terms of note taking. Because
Yeah,
to point, you can't be 100% active listen while doing
yeah,
notes. It's just impossible.
yeah,
So you rather want
exactly,
to just take time to listen and just nurture that relationship and that person in front of you and be there, than being head down, like scribbling around and just trying to put
exactly,
notes down on a piece of paper on a notepad or whatever.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a game changer for me.
Yeah. I think that's really good pieces of advice, that's for sure. And I'm curious because now you said curious. Um, who do you follow that inspire you and keep pushing your boundaries in the way you think?
Yeah, so I guess honestly, there's not that one person. I've never been like that. Even, when I was a teenager, there wasn't just one celebrity or singer or something like that I was following. I always take inspiration from everyone I meet, or everyone around me.
Mm,
I have amazing friends around me who do well for themselves that inspire me to, be more ambitious, and that motivated me to really kind of seek out my own boundaries into what can I achieve. But then sometimes I meet people in my new network now that just have incredible energy, where I'm like, yes, I can see why on the sales calls I would want to listen to you. Then
yeah.
I meet people that have just an incredible approach to how they manage their teams. So I really kind of look at everyone individually and see, what is it that I could potentially adopt that they currently do
Yeah.
that, would also work well for me. So I think there's a lot of people that inspire me in different ways, and sometimes in smaller ways, sometimes in bigger ways. But there is not just this one person
Yeah.
that made an incredible difference. I think there's a lot of people in my life that made a difference to me.
Oh, I like that. That's really enriched. I
Yeah.
like that. And to that point, you were saying, you're picking up things from a broad perspective of people you encounter. What's the last thing you picked up on from anyone?
Ooh, that's a good point. I think the last thing I've picked up from someone is, I guess, just they had this. I think one part, obviously, of sales
Hmm.
is just people need to like you, right? So that's important. They don't
You
just,
get
even if
further
they,
if people like you, I think.
yeah, for sure. Because if you have incredible services, but people don't like you, then, that's not going to help you. So I think there's one person that I met, and from the day that I met him, he also kind of like I was looking up to him to someone, oh, you're already so successful. But I realized he kind of he looked at everyone equally and kind of spread this great energy. And he made me feel that, obviously you can achieve that as well. And just being very positive, non-judgmental, looking, at everyone with on the same level, eye level. How do you say it?
Yeah.
So I think that was just, when you're around someone who has great energy, you're like, oh, I want to be that person that other people feel great to be around. So I think that's maybe the last thing that I actively thought about. Be like, yeah, you really want to be the type of person people like to be around, and spreads good energy.
Good energy. You get so far with good energy, and people want to also support you and help you. If you're a nice person and you give a good energy, then you also get good energy back. So
yeah, exactly.
I like that. If you were to summarize our discussion for the listeners as they come into this discussion, what's the 3 things they're gonna take away from the conversation we've had today?
I guess now I realize that probably that would have been more appropriate as an answer. But I guess, as a takeaway, obviously, again, what I just mentioned, you can do it, be resilient, be curious, be consistent. But I think I'm just looking at anything that I wrote down earlier. But I think I took it away. That was probably my answer earlier. But I think that's the main takeaway. Everyone has the ability. You don't have to come from an entrepreneurial household or background. You don't have to have like the most amazing, academic background. You literally just have to have a business understanding, be, resilient and consistent, and have a great offering. I think that will bring you very far.
Nice. I like that. Eliane, it has been absolutely a pleasure to have you on the show. I've so much enjoyed the conversation, and we can continue. I can't believe the time is out already.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining the Patrium podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for having me. It was really my pleasure to be on the podcast. But thank you so much.
If this episode gave you something to think about, I'll be really grateful if you could share this with your LinkedIn network. And to make sure you don't miss out on any new episodes, simply follow Patrium wherever you are listening or watching. And just a note, the opinions and views shared by our guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily represent the businesses they work for. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye for now.